The night was quiet, too quiet. A cold wind moved through the empty streets, pushing old papers and plastic bags across the road. The city seemed asleep, but one man was awake. He walked slowly, holding a small plastic bag full of food. His shoes made soft sounds on the broken pavement, and the streetlights flickered above him. This man was known by no one here. He had no family in the city, no friends who called his name. He lived alone, worked quietly, and never caused trouble. To people he was just a shadow, a stranger passing by. But to the hungry dogs who waited near the alley, he was something different. They called him Protector in their own way, with wagging tails and hopeful eyes. Every night he came with food. He bent down, opened the bag, and placed bread and small pieces of meat on the ground. The dogs rushed forward, their bones showing through their skin. They barked softly, not in anger but in joy. The man smiled a little, though no one saw. In their world of hunger, he was the only light. But tonight felt different. As the dogs ate, they suddenly stopped, their ears pointing up, their bodies stiff. They sniffed the air and turned toward the darkness at the far end of the alley. The man also felt it, a strange weight in the silence. He lifted his head and looked into the shadows. There was nothing at first, only black walls and dripping water pipes. But then for just a second he saw it, a faint shimmer of light, like glass breaking in the air. When he blinked, it was gone. The dogs growled softly now. Tails low, he whispered to calm them, but his own chest was tight. He could not explain it. But he knew he was not alone. Someone or something was watching. He stepped forward slowly, carefully. The air felt colder, his breath white in the night, and then he saw them. Two small shapes pressed against the wall, hidden in the dark. At first he thought they were children, maybe lost or abandoned. But as the weak light touched their faces, his heart froze. They were not children, at least not human children. Their skin was pale, almost glowing, with strange patterns like silver veins running across it. Their eyes were too large, shining faintly like stars trapped in glass. They looked weak, frightened, and hungry. The dogs barked louder now, but instead of fear, the girls only curled tighter against the wall. One of them raised a trembling hand, not in attack but in plea. The man stood frozen. His mind shouted that this was impossible. Aliens, here, in his city, in his alley. But his eyes told him it was true. They were real, alive, and they were afraid. He took a step back, his hand shaking. The girls made no move to follow. They only looked at the food on the ground, then back at him, their eyes full of silent begging. The man's heart beat hard. He was not brave. He was no hero. Just a lonely stranger who fed stray dogs, but he could not walk away. Not when those eyes begged like that. Slowly, he picked up a piece of bread and held it out. The dogs barked, confused, but stepped aside. The smaller girl crawled forward on weak legs, her thin fingers shaking as she reached. She took the bread and pulled it back quickly, sharing it with the other. They ate fast. As if they had not eaten in many days, the man watched, silent. He felt the weight of something huge pressing down on him. This was no normal night. This was the start of something he did not understand. He looked around, checking the street. It was still empty, but in the distance he heard a sound, a low hum. Almost like an engine, it grew louder, then softer, then gone. The girls froze, their eyes wide with fear. One of them clutched his sleeve, whispering in a language he could not know, but the meaning was clear. They were hiding, they were running, they were hunted. The man's chest tightened. He had only wanted to feed stray dogs, to do one small good thing in this lonely life. But now he stood in front of something bigger. Two alien girls, abandoned, desperate, and scared. And in that moment he knew one thing. His life would never be the same again. The night after meeting the strange girls, the man could not sleep. He lay in his small room, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying what he had seen. The dogs, the shadows, and then those eyes, bright, strange, and full of hunger. He told himself it was a dream, a trick of the night. But deep inside he knew it was real. The memory of their weak hands reaching for food would not leave him. So when the next evening came, he found himself carrying another bag of food. His steps were heavy, his heart full of questions. But his feet still led him to the same alley. The dogs were waiting, their tails wagging as usual. But their eyes kept turning toward the darkness. They seemed restless, as if they too remembered the night before. The man bent down, placed the food, and whispered softly to them. But he was not really speaking to the dogs. He was speaking to the shadows, hoping the girls were still there. At first there was nothing, just silence and the sound of the dogs eating. He almost believed they had gone, maybe taken by whoever hunted them. But then from the far corner of the alley, a soft rustle came. The man froze. Lifting his head, two shapes moved slowly. Carefully, it was them, the alien girls, weaker than before, their steps unsteady, their arms thin as sticks. They looked at him with wide eyes, afraid but hopeful. The smaller one clung to the older, hiding her face against her shoulder. The older one raised a hand not to attack but to ask. Her gesture was clear. And food? The man's throat felt dry. He picked up a piece of bread, broke it, and placed it on the ground. The girls stepped forward, their strange skin glowing faintly under the streetlight. They grabbed the food quickly, tearing it apart, sharing it with each other. Every bite looked painful, as if their bodies had been starving for too long. The man wanted to ask questions, but what words could he use? They did not speak his language. Their voices were strange whispers like broken music. Still, he felt something in the way they looked at him. A silent plea, a call for help without words. They were not dangerous, not monsters, not enemies. They were children, abandoned and desperate. And for some reason, fate had brought them to him. The dogs circled around them, curious but not angry. One dog even lay down near the smaller girl. As if guarding her, the man watched with surprise. The dogs could sense what humans often fail to see: innocence and fear. As the girls ate, the man noticed strange marks on their arms and necks. Not natural, not like birthmarks, they looked burned into the skin, glowing faintly when touched by light. Symbols, lines, maybe scars from experiments. The sight made his stomach turn. Who would hurt them, and why? Suddenly the quiet was broken. From the street outside came the low growl of an engine. The man's head snapped up, his heart racing. Black vans rolled slowly past the alley, their windows dark. He felt the tension in the air. The girls pressed against the wall, trembling, their eyes wide with terror. They knew that sound. The man understood. These were the hunters, the ones looking for them. He stayed completely still, his breath caught in his chest. The van stopped for a moment, their light sweeping across the walls. He pushed the dogs back, whispering for silence. The girls clung to each other, shivering like leaves in the wind. After a long pause, the vans moved again, their engines fading into the night, but the fear remained. Heavy and sharp, the man knelt down. Looking at the girls, he wanted to ask, "Who are they? Why are they after you?" But he knew they would not understand. Still, he pointed at them, then at the vans, raising his eyebrows. The older girl nodded slowly, her face pale with fear. She touched the strange marks on her arm, then looked back at him with eyes full of pain. The meaning was clear enough, and they had been prisoners, and they had escaped. The man felt anger stir inside him. He was not brave. He had no weapons, no army, but he could not watch helplessly. Not when two abandoned souls looked at him as if he was the only one left who could save them. The older girl reached into a torn piece of cloth she carried. From it she pulled a small device. Cracked and broken, it glowed weakly with blue light, humming with energy he did not understand. She placed it carefully in his hand. Her eyes told him the truth. This was important. This was their only hope. And now she was trusting him with it. The man's hands shook as he held it. He had no idea what it was, but he felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him. The girls had no one. No family, no home, but now they had chosen him. Their silent plea was not just for food. It was for protection, for safety, for a chance to live. The man looked at them, his heart pounding. He had entered the alley as a stranger, a man who only fed stray dogs, but tonight, he had stepped into something far greater. The girl's eyes locked on his, filled with trust and fear, and in that moment the man knew the truth. He could not walk away anymore. Whatever hunted them, whatever dangers waited, he had become part of their fight, and there would be no turning back. The man walked home with heavy steps, the broken alien device hidden deep inside his jacket. The cold wind bit his face, but he did not feel it. His mind was storming, full of fear and questions. What was he doing? Why had he taken the strange object? Why had he let those alien girls trust him? He had always lived quietly, never standing out, never making choices bigger than his small life. But now he stood on the edge of something he could not escape. Inside his room, the device hummed faintly. Glowing in the darkness, he placed it on the table and sat down. Staring at it, it looked broken but alive, like a heart that still beat even after being wounded. He touched it gently and the light grew brighter. Strange symbols flickered across its surface, shapes he could not read. He pulled his hand back quickly, his breath sharp. The girls had trusted him with this, but he did not understand why. Was it a key, a weapon, or a signal to call more hunters? That night he did not sleep. Every sound outside made him jump. Every passing car made his chest tighten. He kept seeing their eyes, hungry and afraid, yet filled with trust. Why him? Why a lonely stranger who fed dogs at night? He had no answers, only the weight of their plea. The next day passed slowly. He went to work, sat at his desk, but his hands could not stop shaking. The world around him felt normal, but he knew it was not. Something was happening behind the curtain of everyday life, and he had seen it, touched it, carried it. By evening he made his choice. He could not walk away. He had to see them again. The dogs were waiting when he returned to the alley, tails wagging, noses sniffing the air. But behind them, in the shadows, the girls waited too. They looked weaker, their clothes torn, their faces pale when they saw him. Their eyes lit with relief. The older one stepped forward. Her hand shaking, she pointed at his jacket. Her eyes asking the silent question, "Did you bring it back?" He opened his jacket slowly, showing the device. The faint glow reflected in their eyes. They looked at him as if he was carrying the last piece of their world. The smaller one whispered something soft, a word he could not understand, but her voice was full of gratitude. The man knelt down, holding the device carefully. He wanted to ask them what it was, what they wanted him to do. So he pointed at it, then at the sky, then raised his eyebrows. The older girl nodded weakly, then shook her head. She placed her hand over her chest, then touched his. Her meaning was clear. This was not for the sky, not for war. This was for life, for survival. The man swallowed hard. He did not understand their language, but he understood enough. They had been prisoners, they had escaped, and now they were running from the same people who wanted them back. This device was the last thing they had, and they had given it to him. Why? Before he could think more. He heard it again, engines in the distance. Heavy and slow, the girls froze. Clutching each other, the man's body went cold. The hunters were close, closer than before. He grabbed the device, stuffed it back into his jacket, and waved at the girls. They hesitated, but when he gestured again, they followed. The dogs barked nervously, running ahead and behind as if guiding them. The man led them through the narrow alleys, past broken fences and old brick walls. Every step was filled with fear, every shadow a possible trap. Behind them, the sound of boots and radios echoed. The hunters were searching. They reached his small apartment at the edge of the city. It was not much. One room, one table, one bed. But tonight it became a shelter. The girls sat on the floor, holding each other, whispering in their strange voices. The man closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and listened to the night. Cars passed, doors slammed, voices shouted in the distance. He sat by the window, his heart pounding. If they found him, if they found the girls here, his life was finished. Yet he could not send them away. He looked at their faces, thin and tired, their eyes heavy with pain, and something inside him shifted. For the first time in his life, he felt he had a purpose, not just feeding dogs, not just surviving another empty day, but protecting two lives that no one else cared for. It was not logic, not reason. It was something deeper, something human. The older girl touched his hand, her skin cool and strange. She looked at him with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. She pointed to the door, then shook her head. Her meaning was clear. Not if he wanted to survive, he should send them away. But he shook his head slowly. He was not going to abandon them. Not now, not ever. The night grew colder. The city outside restless. The man sat awake, guarding the window. The girls huddled close, whispering soft words in a language he could not know. And the device on the table glowed faintly, alive, waiting. The man did not know what dangers tomorrow would bring, but tonight his choice was made. He was their protector now, and nothing would change that. The night was heavy with silence inside the small room. The man sat near the window, watching the streets. The alien girls slept close together on the floor, their thin arms wrapped around each other. The broken device glowed faintly on the table, filling the room with an eerie blue light. The man's eyes refused to close, his mind restless, his ears catching every sound outside. Then it came, the low hum of engines rolling slowly through the street. Headlights swept across the walls outside his building. Cutting through the curtains, the man's breath caught. His heart beating hard against his chest, the girls stirred, their glowing eyes opening with sudden fear. They knew the sound, they had heard it before. Voices echoed outside, sharp and cold. The heavy sound of boots struck the pavement. The hunters were here. The man moved quickly, grabbing the device and stuffing it into his jacket. He gestured to the girls to be quiet, his finger pressed to his lips. His eyes hard, they nodded, trembling, holding hands tightly. The knock came next, loud, heavy, shaking the door in its frame. The man froze, every muscle tense. The knock came again, stronger. Then a voice spoke. "Open up, routine check." But the man knew this was no routine. He did not answer. He pointed to the small door at the back, the one that led to the old stairs. The girls understood, though fear made their legs weak. He opened the back quietly, pushing the door wide. The stairwell smelled of dust and rust, but it was their only escape. The girls slipped through first, their bare feet light against the steps. The man followed, closing the door behind them. The front door shook again, harder this time. The hunters were forcing it, there was no more time. Down the stairwell they ran, their breaths quick and shallow. The dogs appeared as if summoned by fate, barking low, leading the way. The man felt his chest burn, but he kept moving. The sound of splintering wood echoed above them. The hunters had broken in. Voices shouted, boots thundered, they were chasing now. The stairwell opened into the back alleys of the city. The air was colder here, the streets narrow and twisted. The man led them left, then right. Moving fast but careful, the girls stayed close, their eyes glowing softly in the dark. Behind them, flashlights cut through the night. Radios crackled with orders. The hunters were closing in. The man's heart pounded with fear, but also with fire. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. He grabbed the smaller girl's hand to keep her steady. Her skin was cold, trembling. But she did not resist. They ran together, the dogs barking louder, warning of danger ahead. Suddenly, a van screeched into the alley, blocking the way. Its headlights blinded them, casting their shadows long on the walls. The man stopped, pulling the girls behind him. The van door slid open, dark figures stepping out with weapons in their hands. The girls whimpered, clutching his jacket. The man's mind raced, trapped from both sides. Then the older girl moved. She pressed her palm to the wall, her strange skin glowing brighter. For a second, the bricks shimmered like water. The man stared in shock, not understanding. But she pulled him forward, pulling the smaller girl too. And before he could think, they were through the wall. They tumbled into another alley, the wall behind them returning to solid stone. The man gasped, his body shaking. The girls were pale, their energy drained. But they had saved him, he understood then. They had power. But it was fading, and without his help, they would not survive. The chase did not stop. Voices shouted behind them. The hunters confused but relentless. The man led the girls deeper into the city. Past abandoned buildings and broken fences, every step was a battle. Every turn a gamble, but he refused to stop. Refused to give them up. The dogs ran ahead, guiding them toward the old forest at the city's edge. The man knew it well, a place forgotten where people rarely went. If they could reach it, maybe they could hide. Maybe they could find one night of safety. They reached the trees just as more vans screeched behind them. The man pushed the girls forward. Deeper into the darkness, branches cut their skin. The cold air bit their faces, but still they ran behind them. Lights danced through the forest, voices shouting louder. The hunters would not stop. At last they stumbled into a clearing. The moon shone bright silver across the ground. The girls collapsed, their energy gone. The man bent over them, his chest heaving. He held the device in his hand, its glow stronger now. As if it had awakened from the chase, a faint hum rose from it, filling the clearing with strange vibrations. The girls opened their eyes weakly, staring at it with both hope and fear. The man felt the weight of it again, heavy in his hands. This was not just a tool, not just a broken machine. It was calling something bigger, something he was not ready to face. The hunters' voices grew closer, the sound of branches snapping under their boots. The man looked at the girls, then at the device. His heart was pounding, his mind screaming. But one truth burned clear. He had chosen to protect them, and now he would run, fight, and stand until his last breath. The night was no longer his own, it belonged to the chase. And the chase had only just begun. The forest was silent except for the man's heavy breathing. The alien girls lay on the cold ground, their thin bodies trembling with exhaustion. The dogs circled them, growling softly at the shadows. The hunters were close, their flashlights cutting through the trees like sharp blades. The man gripped the strange device, its glow brighter now than ever before. The hum grew louder, steady, alive. Blue light spread from the cracks on its surface, painting the trees in ghostly colors. The man stared, his hands shaking. He did not know what it was. Yet he felt it was about to show him something. The older girl reached out weakly. Touching the device with her trembling fingers, her strange markings glowed, the same symbols burning brighter across her skin. The device responded, projecting light into the air. The man gasped, his eyes wide. Before him rose a figure made of pure light, tall and shifting. Its voice was not words but vibrations, a deep hum that shook the ground. Symbols floated around it, glowing like stars. The girls whispered in their alien tongue, their voices full of fear and longing. The man could not understand, but he felt the truth in his bones. The message was not random. It showed images, broken ships drifting in space, burning cities, cries of alien children. Then it showed soldiers in black armor, the same kind as the hunters chasing them. It was clear now the girls were not criminals, not enemies, they were survivors. The last of something greater. The hunters were not protectors. They were hunters in the truest sense. They had captured, destroyed, and abandoned, and now they wanted to erase the last pieces. The man's chest tightened. He saw the girls' faces in the glowing images. Their family, their people gone. The message was a warning, but also a plea. It said, "Help us, protect us, you are not alone in this fight." The man felt his throat close, tears burning in his eyes. He had always been nothing, a shadow in the city. But now the universe itself had placed a burden in his hands. The projection flickered, showing one last image, a giant ship, hidden in the darkness of space, waiting. Then the light vanished. The device dimmed. The forest fell silent again, but the meaning remained. The man looked at the girls. They stared back at him with wide, glowing eyes. They did not need words, the truth was already clear. They were the last hope of their people, and he was the one holding the key. The silence broke with the sound of snapping branches. The hunters were close now, voices calling, flashlights bouncing against the trees. The man stuffed the device back into his jacket. He pulled the girls to their feet, even though they could barely stand. The dogs barked sharply, warning of danger. There was no time to rest, no time to think. The chase was not over. He led them deeper into the forest, his legs burning, his lungs screaming for air. The girls stumbled, but he dragged them forward. The hunters shouted, their lights chasing them like wolves. Every second felt like the end, but the man refused to stop. He had seen the truth, and he would not abandon it. They reached a stream, the water cold and rushing. The man guided them across the slippery stones. Behind them, voices grew louder, closer. One dog barked and ran back, distracting the hunters. The man's heart ached, but he kept moving. The sacrifice gave them a few more seconds, and in a chase like this, seconds were life at last. They reached an old cabin, broken and forgotten in the woods. Its roof sagged, its windows shattered, but it was shelter. The man pushed the girls inside, closing the door softly. They collapsed on the floor, too weak to move. The man crouched near the window. Peeking out at the forest, the hunters moved past, their lights sweeping dangerously close. But for now, they did not see the cabin. The device pulsed again, faint but steady. The man pulled it out. Staring at it in the darkness, he whispered softly, "Why me?" But the device gave no answer, only the slow heartbeat of its light. The girls stirred, their eyes half closed. The older one reached for his hand. Her touch soft, she pointed at his chest. Then at the device, her meaning was clear. "Because you chose us." The man sat there in silence, the weight of the night pressing on him. The hunters were still searching, the danger was not gone. But something inside him had changed. He was no longer just a stranger feeding dogs in the shadows. He was a protector, a shield, a human who had chosen to stand. The universe had spoken through the hidden message, and he had listened. The night stretched long, the air heavy with fear and hope. The man kept watch, the dogs guarding the broken cabin. The girls slept, their breath soft and shallow, and the device glowed faintly in the darkness, waiting. The message had been clear. The fight was only beginning. The forest cabin was silent except for the sound of breathing. The man sat by the window, his tired eyes scanning the trees. The dogs lay close to the door, ears sharp, ready to warn of danger. The alien girls slept on the floor, their fragile bodies curled together for warmth. The device rested on the table, its glow dim but steady like a waiting heart. The night stretched long, every minute heavy. The man's thoughts swirled, pulling him in many directions. He had seen the hidden message, seen the truth of the girls' world. He knew now they were not only victims but also a spark of something greater. Still, he felt the weight pressing against him. How could he protect them? How could a single man fight against hunters with machines and guns? As dawn approached, a faint sound broke the silence. The smaller girl stirred, her body shivering as if caught in a dream. Her eyes opened, glowing brighter than before. She gasped softly, clutching her chest, her voice trembling in alien whispers. The older girl woke too, pulling her close, panic flashing in her silver-marked face. The man knelt beside them. Unsure of what was happening, the device pulsed stronger, answering the girl's trembling light. Blue energy rose from her skin, faint at first, then growing. The man stumbled back, his eyes wide. The girl's whole body glowed, the strange symbols across her arms burning like fire. The dogs barked, their fur standing on end. The older girl whispered urgently, holding her sister, her own markings glowing weakly. The smaller one arched in pain, her cry filling the cabin. The device lifted slightly from the table, floating in the air, spinning slowly. Light filled the room, painting the broken walls with shifting symbols. The man shielded his eyes, his heart pounding. He feared she might break apart, explode, or call the hunters to their hiding place, but then the energy slowed, wrapping around her like a protective shield. Her body relaxed, her glowing eyes locking onto his. For the first time, she spoke a word he understood. "Help," she whispered, her voice broken but clear. The man froze, his chest tightening. This was more than survival, more than fear. Something inside her had awakened. The older girl looked at him, desperation in her glowing eyes. She pressed her hand against her chest, then against his. Her gesture was clear. "You must protect her, she is important." The man nodded slowly. Though his heart raced, he did not understand the full meaning. But he understood enough. The younger girl carried something powerful, something dangerous, and now that power had awakened. It could either save them or destroy them. The silence shattered. Outside, the distant roar of engines shook the morning air. The hunters were back, their machines moving through the forest. The dogs growled low, their eyes sharp toward the trees. The man grabbed the device and stuffed it into his jacket. He motioned for the girls to stay quiet, but the smaller girl still glowed faintly. Her light impossible to hide, voices shouted outside, radios crackling, boots crushing leaves. The cabin shook as they surrounded it. The man's chest tightened, or there was no time left. The older girl pulled her sister close, whispering fast in her alien tongue. The younger girl nodded weakly, then raised her hand. The air shimmered, a faint barrier forming around them. The hunters burst through the door, weapons raised. But the bullets hit the barrier and fell to the ground. The man stared in shock, unable to believe what he saw. The girls were weak, but even in weakness, they carried power beyond human reach. The hunters shouted, retreating slightly, their leader barking new orders. The man knew they would not stop. They would return stronger. He pulled the girls toward the back, pushing them into the trees. The dogs ran ahead, guiding the way as always. The barrier flickered, fading as the younger girl collapsed into her sister's arms. But it had bought them precious time. They stumbled deeper into the forest, the man half carrying the younger one. His muscles burned, but he refused to let go. The older girl kept glancing back, her eyes wide with fear. The hunters followed, but slower now, unsure after seeing the strange power. The man's heart thundered, his breath ragged. He did not know how long they could run, but he would not stop. At last, they found an old cave hidden among the rocks, dark, damp, forgotten, but safe for now. The man guided them inside, laying the younger girl gently against the stone wall. Her glow dimmed, her breathing soft but steady. The older girl looked at him with tears in her strange eyes. She touched his hand, whispering something he could not understand. But he knew the meaning. "Thank you, protector." The man sat in the darkness, listening to the hunters move through the forest. He held the device close, its hum strong against his chest. The younger girl stirred again, her faint light glowing softly. She whispered a single word, one that sent shivers down his spine. "Invasion." The man's blood ran cold. This was no longer just about survival, no longer just about keeping two alien girls safe. The awakening had revealed something larger, darker, and closer than he had ever imagined. The hunters were only the beginning. Something far greater was coming, and somehow he was now part of the fight. The cave was dark, but the silence outside was worse. The man sat near the entrance, his back pressed against the stone. The alien girls huddled close behind him, their glowing eyes filled with fear and trust. The device pulsed inside his jacket, alive like a hidden heart. The hunters' voices drifted through the forest, closer with every passing moment. The younger girl's whisper echoed in his mind. Invasion. The word repeated again and again. Heavy as stone, the man's chest tightened. He was no soldier, no leader, no hero. He was just a stranger who once fed stray dogs at night, but now he stood between the hunters and the only two survivors of a broken world, and behind their survival waited a truth too big for him to understand. The dogs growled softly, ears high, tails stiff. They sensed the danger closing in. The man picked up a broken branch, gripping it tight. It was not a weapon against guns, but it was all he had. His hands shook, but his eyes were steady. He had made his choice long ago. He would not abandon them. The hunters arrived, their flashlights cutting through the trees. Dark figures spread out surrounding the cave. Their leader shouted cold orders, his voice sharp and cruel. Take them alive, the man too, if possible. Kill the dogs. The man's blood boiled. His fear turning to fire, he whispered to the girls. His voice low. Stay behind me no matter what happens. They nodded, clutching each other, their glowing hands trembling. The hunters advanced, their boots breaking branches, their weapons raised. The man stepped out from the cave entrance, his body blocking the way. Leave them, he said, his voice shaking but strong. The hunters laughed, their leader raising a hand. A human protecting aliens, foolish. But the man did not move. He tightened his grip on the branch, his heart thundering in his chest. The first hunter rushed forward. Swinging his weapon, the man dodged, swinging the branch hard. The wood cracked against armor, not enough to break, but enough to push the figure back. The dogs leapt, teeth flashing, dragging another hunter to the ground. Chaos broke in the clearing, shouts and growls mixing with the hum of the device. The girls cried out, their hands glowing brighter. The younger one raised her trembling arms, a shield of light burst around them. Deflecting bullets, the man stood in the glow, his branch raised like a sword. He was shaking, bleeding, but still standing. Every part of him wanted to run, but something stronger kept him rooted. Human stubbornness, human courage, human will. The hunters pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming. But the man refused to step aside. He fought with everything he had. His branch broke. His fists bled, but he stood. The dogs tore at boots and legs, fearless against machines. The girls poured their last strength into the shield, their cries filling the night. Then the device answered. It flew from his jacket, hovering in the air. Spinning fast, light shot out, reaching high into the sky. The forest lit up as if the stars themselves had fallen. The hunters froze, their weapons shaking. The leader shouted, "Stop it!" Destroy it, but it was too late. The beacon had been sent. Far above, in the silent sky, something answered. The man saw it through the trees. A distant light growing larger. A ship, massive and bright, breaking through the clouds. The hunters panicked, shouting into their radios. Retreating, their leader cursed, pointing at the man with fury. "This isn't over," he spat. Before vanishing into the forest with his men, the clearing fell silent again. The dogs barked, tails wagging. As if cheering their small victory, the girls collapsed, their glow fading. The man caught them. Lowering them gently to the ground, the ship descended slowly. Its light warm, not threatening, voices echoed from above. Alien yet soft, the girls stirred, tears in their eyes. Their people had heard them. The beacon had worked. The man stood there, exhausted, broken, but alive. He looked at the girls, then at the rising ship. He had fought not with weapons, but with will, not with strength, but with kindness, and it had been enough. The girls reached out. Their voices soft, they spoke one word, broken but clear. Protector. The man's chest tightened, his eyes burning. He was no hero, no soldier, no chosen one. He was simply human. And yet, in that night, in that fight, humanity had stood tall. The stray dogs howled under the brightening sky. The girls clung to him one last time before the light of the ship carried them upward. And as the forest fell silent again, the man looked to the sky. Knowing his life would never be the same, the universe was vast, cruel, and dark. But even in that darkness, a simple act of kindness had lit a fire. A man who once fed stray dogs had saved 2 alien lives. And in doing so, he had shown a truth older than stars. Human courage, human love, human will. That was the stand he had made, and it was only the beginning.